Faith Time is our weekly conversation on matters of faith, and joining us this morning is James Johnson with NorthStone Baptist Church. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Chad.
We wanted to talk about the topic of help for discouraged Christians. Where do you start?
Yeah, well, the Bible has much to say about help for discouraged Christians, and I guess the first passage of Scripture that comes to my mind is Romans chapter 8, primarily verses 31 through the end of the chapter, because it lists a bunch of things that can discourage individuals, things like tribulation and distress and peril and famine, nakedness and sword. Sword is the idea of leading trials that even lead us unto death.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too is that the text says that in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. And I think a lot of people overlook that little preposition in, because it's in all these things. A lot of times we feel like more than a conqueror before we get into a time of tribulation or distress, or we feel like a conqueror after those times. But it's interesting that Paul, the human penman there in Romans 8, says in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him that loved us.
So what is the key to becoming more than a conqueror in the midst of really hard circumstances?
Well, I think the key is the last phrase of that verse, and I think it's verse 37 in Romans 8. So again, it's in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. The key is through him that loved us, and just to marvel at the love of God. And the point of the text is, there may be a lot of things that this world tries to take away from you, but nobody can separate you from the love of Christ. And with that kind of mindset, Christians can have a spiritual swagger as we walk through this old sinful world.
We will talk more about that topic in the next hour of News 5 this morning on Faith Time. We thank you for watching WKRG on this Sunday morning.